Hello, and welcome to the Radiant Mission podcast. My name is Rebecca Toomey, and I am here with my lovely co host and sister, Rachel Smith.
Hey, guys.
We are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through your life and with your relationship with Christ. And we're back today to talk about homeschooling.
Yeah.
And last week we got into kind of the benefits of homeschooling, why people homeschool, talking a little bit about curriculum and kind of what is up in the homeschooling world. And we, of course, love to go on our tangents. So we have more to talk about. We really want to get into what about when things get hard, like in middle and high school? How do I teach high schoolers and middle schoolers? What do I do? And then we also want to get into the college aspect of this. Can homeschoolers go to college? What do they need to do to go to college? How does this all work? The short answer is, of course, kids that are homeschooled can go to college. In fact, they can go earlier than anyone because they're brilliant. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
If anything, college is easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, let's just jump right into what about when things get hard? Because homeschooling middle school and high school kids has unique challenges. It's not as easy and fun per se as when they're in elementary school because you have this extra little tiny ingredient called hormones. As I
Yeah.
always hear, I don't have
We
teenage children yet.
we can only talk about this from the perspective of us experiencing it since we don't have middle or high school kids yet. So I
Yes.
don't know
Yes.
if it's going to be smooth sailing for us or if this will be a challenge that, we have to overcome too and
Yeah, for
make different
context,
decisions on.
sure. For context, if you didn't listen to the last episode, Rachel and I were both homeschooled. I was
Mhm.
homeschooled until I went to college, which was at age 16. And then Rachel was homeschooled until ninth grade, and she went to public school for high school.
Yeah, so
So,
I'm the youngest of all of our parents' kids.
mhm.
So by the time they got to me, they were real worn out, and I didn't want to homeschool anymore. I wanted to go to school. So that
Yeah.
combination created the scenario of just be done homeschooling and go to school.
Well,
And
that I think that's going to lend to some of what we'll talk about, but I think it's important to note that our parents and our mom gave us all a choice. When we were homeschooled towards the end, right? Like as we got to the end of middle school, all of us had the choice and honestly, we all kind of had the choice probably starting in like seventh grade, I would say, that if we really pushed and we really wanted to go to school, then our mom probably would have been like, okay, if that's what you guys, if you really want to do that. She did, I feel it was important to homeschool for as long as possible to kind of protect us from all the nonsense that we talked about last time. But she gave us the choice as we were getting to high school. You can either stay homeschooled and you can start college early, or you can not start college early. But why wouldn't you if you could? Like, it's kind of silly.
I didn't want to.
I mean, if you were going to stay homeschooled,
Oh, right.
like
Yeah, yeah.
who would choose to stay homeschooled for 4 years and then go to college
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
could get credits
And
while,
just
you know,
wanted to go to school
yeah, I'm
and
saying, or you could go to
yeah,
high school
yeah.
and you chose to go to high school. You were like, I don't want to start college early. I'm going to high school. I'm getting out of this place.
Yeah, I really, really, really wanted to go to school. And to be honest, like all throughout high school, I never wanted to go back to homeschooling. Like I don't remember ever having a thought of wanting to be homeschooled again. Even when in my sophomore year, my school, I made friends, at school my freshman year. And that was hard because I didn't know anyone like everybody else did. And then my sophomore year, I got rezoned to a brand new high school that nobody was going to know anyone because everybody was going to be new. It was in our neighborhood. And I had to go there sophomore year and I hated it. I was miserable. And then I found my own loophole to get back into my original high school. But then dad had to drive me every day because there was no bus that would go there because I wasn't zoned for there anymore. He
Yeah.
hated that. at that time anyway. I bet he misses those days driving me to school now. But anyway, all that to say, I don't remember ever thinking I want to go back to homeschooling at that time.
Hmm.
After high school, once I grew up and the frontal lobe of my brain finished developing and I matured into an adult, it was a huge mistake. I think I would have, I mean, I'm not going to say that I regret it, or I guess I shouldn't even say it was a mistake, but I now have the perspective that I can see all of that nonsense that I experienced going to a public high school that I never would have had to deal with or been exposed to if I never would have gone.
Yeah.
And
Do you want to share a little
most of
bit
it was
about
negative.
some of that? Like, because
I mean,
maybe that could be a learning experience for some parents whose kids are like, I want to go to school. And now I know that we all want to save our kids and protect our kids. And sometimes we just can't. But I think that that's part of what you're referring
yeah,
to is like you were exposed to kids that didn't always treat each other the best way.
there
You were
had no
exposed to the
morals and values at all. It was like, so it was the school in the, I guess if you want to say the rich part of town, so it was where mostly wealthy kids went. And so to give a brief summary without making this podcast about an entirely new topic, the things I dealt with, which is the list of negatives is going to be long. Bullying, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, relationships with boys at a young age that were very intense and too serious for the age that I was. Alcohol, drugs, parties, um, all kinds of other debauchery and things that are just incredibly inappropriate for someone between the age of 15 and 18. And so I'm being kind of vague, like I said,
Yeah.
to not make this about something else, but I had extreme mental health issues when I was in high school. And it's possible that I would have struggled with a lot of those things even if I had stayed home. We don't know because it didn't happen that
Hmm.
way.
Hmm.
But being exposed to other kids that then exposed me to alcohol and things like that when my brain was developing and I was, going through hard things, like it definitely affected me negatively in
Hmm.
a mental, emotional, and a social way. I will say, as far as academically, I did great in high school. I enjoyed going to classes. In some ways, I think I, it's funny because now I'm an advocate for freedom and kids learning as they please. But I did do well in the classroom setting of being assigned work, and then you have to do the work and you need to study and then take a test. Like I actually did really well and I graduated with above a 4.0 GPA when I graduated high school.
Do
And
you
I
think
was
that that
in
had
honors and
something?
AP classes.
Do you think that that had something to do with the kind of the comparison between you were only performing for your mom versus now you're up against all these other students and you have to kind of show this teacher that you have intelligence and that, you need to get it done? Do you think that there was a driver there
Yeah, probably.
of
I think
competition?
yeah, if not competition, the desire to fit in, maybe because you're all in the classroom and I think it motivated me in a way of, oh, I got to focus on this because we're all doing it. We're all,
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
all need to take notes and we all, like, I was externally motivated. I think I
Mhm.
had struggles with homeschooling being internally motivated of,
Self-motivation, you have to
right.
be extremely self-motivated
Yes.
to be successful in structured homeschooling.
Right, exactly. And that I really struggled with.
Mhm.
So I should say then that academically, public school was not all bad. And I
Mhm.
did enjoy
Yeah.
things and I did really well. It was the kids. It was all of the social aspects that
Yeah.
is really awful. Like I don't have a lot of positive things to say other than I did make some lifelong friends, but I have lifelong friends from homeschooling too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's not the only way that people make friends is at school.
I think
But
that's one of the things that's interesting about homeschooling is that people often say, well, like, how are you going to get socialized? And then now look at
no.
the socialization aspect of
this
this.
and this is the thing that I have a perspective of both ways is with homeschooling as the parent you can curate who your child is socialized with. At school, especially public school, a private school might be different because you are kind of automatically curating who your child is socialized with because who would spend thousands of dollars to send their kid to a Christian school if they didn't want them to be around other, getting a Christian education, be around other Christian kids. But a public school, it's a melting pot. And most of these kids have no moral compass. And it's just kind of like a free for all. And this is the interesting thing about parenting is for the first, let's say, 10 to 11 years, the parent is the main influence on the child. A child looks up to their parent and wants to please them, wants to impress them. And even though it doesn't seem like they want to listen, the parent is their guiding force.
Mhm.
From 12 years on, and this is socially normal. This is the way that God made us. But from 12 years on, it's more typical that your peers become,
Your
the
center of
person
influence.
exactly who you want to impress, who
Mhm.
you seek guidance and advice from, and who you look up to. So when you're surrounded by a bunch of debaucherous teenagers, that's going to be, for 8 hours a day, those are going to be your center of influence. And teenagers don't, most of them don't have great judgment. And
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know you mentioned Christian schools or private schools. I can't even tell you how many people I know that went to Christian and or Catholic schools, and it was the same issues,
yeah,
drinking and drugs and
yeah,
partying and all the other stuff. Same stuff was going on at those schools than at public schools.
yeah,
You know, kids were getting kicked out of school for selling drugs to each other. So it's
hmm,
not like this is isolated to just public school. This is the world.
yeah.
This is
Because
the world.
it's a sin problem. It's
It is. It is. And when kids are influencing each
And,
other,
I've heard people say before that as believers, they want their children to be the light and to influence other kids at school positively. And I think that that is a great desire to have. But the more that I've come to learn, and in my own experience, since I was raised in the church and then thrown to the wolves in ninth grade. I'm just kidding. I wasn't thrown to the wolves. I ran to the wolves. Um, Children, nowhere in the Bible does it say that children are supposed to be evangelists. It's not the job of children.
at age 7
Yeah,
in the public school system.
and that's just not their job. Now, are we to raise up our children in the way that they should go? Should they grow up knowing God, having a relationship with him, knowing what our Messiah and Savior has done and knowing about right and wrong and sin? Of course. But I do not believe that it is a child's responsibility to evangelize other children. They,
I don't even
so
know how they could. I mean, have you ever been in a room with middle schoolers before? Because I have. I'll share a fun fact for y'all. So I mentioned I started college early. So I was graduating with my bachelor's degree at like 19. So I started my master's program immediately. So at 19 or 20. And my degree was in English education. And I got to back up. So in between that time, before I went from a master's program, I got my substitute teaching certification because I thought that I might want to be a teacher. Kind of silly, right? Someone who had never been to school before in the system
That is
thought
actually kind of funny to think about.
I thought that I could teach. And I
I
think the
never thought
truth
about
is
it
that
that
I
way.
knew I could teach. I just couldn't teach my own kids, not groups of students, right? So
Yeah.
this was actually I was about I think it was 18. I was 18 years old. I got my substitute teaching certification and I kept getting assigned to the middle school that was actually next to where you went to high school.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
it was horrific. Those kids were, I don't want to use mean language to say that they were like psychopaths or anything like that because they were children, but I have never seen anything like it. It was like a game that because I wasn't the regular teacher and I was just a substitute, that they were like, "Oh, we're just going to watch a movie, right?" And then I would spend the entire time having people come to remove kids from the class that were being totally inappropriate, disruptive, cursing, saying just like totally profane things. I only substitute taught for a couple of times because I was like, This is crazy.
It's
I do
crazy to
not
think that you
understand."
also were probably only like 4 or 5 years older than them.
I know. Every time that I taught, I was always super about the same age as whoever I was teaching. So it was a little bit weird. Um, I never taught at the high school. I never even signed up to teach to substitute at the high school because I knew I could never make it. Those kids would eat me alive and I was too young because I
Yeah.
was about the same age, right? And then when I went to grad school, I taught college writing. And so I'm like 20. These kids are 18, 19. I'm teaching college 1101 and some were older students. And I had a lot of the same issues. There was a lot of behavioral, just kind of like disrespectful and stuff like that. But I learned by that point to really to have a voice. And every semester I got better and better and tougher and tougher. And it's funny because people think that, or students would think that because I was young, I was like pushover or easy, but I was so strict. On day one, I would be like, listen, if you're looking for a class where you're gonna not show up and not do your work and you're gonna pass this ain't it. Drop my class and go to this teacher or go to that one. Go pick anybody else. Don't pick me. And I used to keep a roll sheet of like when kids would come in late because it used to drive me crazy. It was a half hour class and they come in after 20 minutes. I'm like, so you're gonna be here for 10 minutes? You think that you're getting attendance? No way. I didn't get here where I am today because of skipping out. So anyway,
I
just
got
kind of
here
a
off homeschooling.
I got here off homeschooling. Just kind of a funny aside.
Yeah.
And going through that experience made me realize I could never teach a group of children in a public school setting because it was too much behavior. There were too many
It
behavior
is.
issues.
Hmm.
And that did not feel good to me. I enjoyed the adult students. I loved having people that were coming back to school that were a little older. They were my favorite. And I really enjoyed that. And that was kind of one of the catalysts that led me out of education. And in a way, what I do for my job now is a lot of teaching and education. I teach people about different business aspects and social media and sales and all that kind of stuff. And I'm talking to professionals. I'm talking
Yeah.
to adults
Grown
that are taking
adults.
life
Yeah.
seriously, not kids who think everything's a joke. So it's just
Yeah.
it's a different application. But it's just kind of funny to think back on that, right? That I thought for 5 seconds that I could do that. But but let's talk a little bit about kind of the challenges that a lot of moms, if you're homeschooling, you might face coming up against advanced subject matter like algebra or certain science classes or things like that. it can be tough for parents to navigate. And I know that I feel like our mom did a good job with this because she knew where she was strong and where she wasn't. And she
Mhm.
tried to fill those gaps with people that were, I think we mentioned this in the first episode on homeschooling, that we had a math tutor, Tony, who
Tony Carboni.
who did our math and like some science classes. And I
But
had a
yeah,
hard time with him. He always made me cry because he made me feel like an idiot.
oh, I loved
But
him.
you loved him.
He got me on the mathletes, a math club. But I love I we talked about it last time that I always loved math from the
Yeah.
beginning. You didn't, so
I was
it's
more on the art side. I liked writing, reading, creative things. And it makes sense because that's what I ended up doing in my work too, as I love creative stuff and creating websites and
it
things like
doesn't make
that.
sense for me because I'm like terrible at math today. Chris
Well,
Chris
think
laughs at
about
me because I can't even do basic math.
think about what you are teaching Everett about starting his own business and the
Yeah,
conversation
yeah.
about inflation from the last time. Don't sell yourself short.
No, I realized that we can all be intelligent at certain things or broadly. Like for me, I think I have a strength in thinking deeply and critically about things. So I can understand a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
And that can kind of, as a homeschool parent, be an overarching, um, you know what I'm not very good at is words right now. I keep forgetting words.
Well, I think that the whole point that we're trying to make right now is that you don't have to know everything.
Yeah,
There's a
exactly.
lot of fear that
Because
comes.
yes, like what you were brought up with our mom, knowing the things that she had strengths in and what were weaknesses as far as teaching, and then you hire out help for
Yes.
those things. So
You
that's the
you get a
thing.
tutor or you use an
Exactly.
online course
Or
or a co-op.
a big thing with homeschoolers is to be in a homeschool group or homeschool
Hmm.
co-op. And
Hmm.
and then you have the strength in numbers with other homeschool families that you come together and you find a space to meet at. For us, we met at our church, and the all of the moms in our homeschool group hired tutors for things like higher math. It was algebra 1 and up, and then we had classes twice a week at the
Hmm.
church, and he would teach classes of, maybe 10 homeschool kids. And we also had our mom taught biology class because she really loved science. I remember multiple times them hiring art teachers, and we got to have different art classes.
Hmm.
So,
Mom also did a writing lab that I really liked. She also did
oh,
a
and public
speech
speaking.
class.
Yes, I
She
remember
did,
her in
yeah,
public
public
speaking.
speaking. And yeah, I loved those. Also, people might not realize this is that you can still do things like plays because we were in a homeschool group. We always were involved in doing kind of an annual
Theater,
play,
yeah, yeah.
theater, like a musical. And we did multiple of those.
I don't
And
know if it's
yeah.
where I live right now, but I have not found a homeschool group that is anything like what we grew up with. And part of me also wonders, it could be where I live, that it's very possible. And it's just, we don't have access to that here. But part of me does wonder if it's our new social media age that I'm in Facebook groups for homeschool groups, and they'll meet at a park and stuff like that, or to do different activities. But it is nothing like we had when we were kids, where we were like, remember those theater productions we had of
Oh
like
yeah.
50 kids?
Oh, there was like 100 kids. And we were in
Yeah,
two separate groups. Actually, one was when we lived up north and one was when we lived in
yeah.
Florida.
I haven't found
And
any homeschool group that big.
it does make me wonder if the moms of that generation were much better at coordination and getting
Yeah,
together, because that's what it sounds like. Maybe
yeah.
you just haven't found the right a group that needs to be based out of a church because you need somewhere that they have the space to do that kind of thing. Because you're not going to be practicing for a play at the swing set, you know?
Yeah.
You need to be in a physical building that has a stage. So maybe look for a homeschool group that's at like a mega church or something, and that might have that particular piece of extracurricular
Yeah.
that could be kind of fun.
Yeah, but I do utilize co-ops. My kids are in a co-op at a church, which is actually a drop-off program. They call it going to school once a week.
The
And
kids,
they
not the
yeah,
teachers or
yeah,
the co-op.
my kids call it going to school. And they get the extracurriculars, like they learn Spanish, art, music, things that I'm kind of similar to our mom, that I realize that are not my strengths. Like I don't know where to even start teaching them anything about music. So,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
art, I could do well with that, but I have an artist background, and to be honest, that makes it 1,000 times harder to teach my kids art, because it's like it
I was watching a
yeah.
video recently where this mom asks her kids, and I swear these kids look like they were 4 and 6 years old. And she was like, red and blue makes, and they like shout it out. And I'm like, how do these kids remember this at this young? What am I doing? I can barely even remember this. And I've been in makeup artistry and had to make colors and use color theory. And even
Yeah.
I still can't shout it out. But, everybody has their own skills. I think another kind of issue that comes up a lot, and I know was an issue for you, was time management and
Oh, yeah.
organization can be a big one. And I think that when it comes to kids kind of building that structure can help for those that are not self-motivated, I guess you could say. I think us using an online curriculum, or I guess it wasn't online, it was just a computer program back when we were in school because we didn't have the pleasure of the internet at our fingertips every second, which actually was a good thing.
We had
But
CDs that we
we had CDs. We used a curriculum called
CD-ROMs.
Switched On Schoolhouse or SOS, which still exists
Ah,
today.
I
And
didn't
when
even
we were
I never
younger, we
thought
used
about the name.
Abeka, which still exists today.
Oh,
And
yeah, Becca's very popular today.
Sax and math, I remember
I
doing.
bought Saxon Math first grade curriculum for Everett, which, by the way, you can have it because I hated it. But that's the thing. We're going to get into curriculum more probably in a
Yeah.
second, right? Or actually, no, we already talked about it a little bit. But the thing with some people will say, oh, this one worked great for us. And then you get it and then you don't like it. And
Mhm.
it's like you become like addicted to buying curriculums. And then for me, the first like 2 years, I didn't like any of them.
Yeah.
And they were all the ones that people recommended to me. And so you really kind of just have to find not just works best for your kids, because that's the thing is you try if some of the curriculums, the way that they like math, for example, the way that they teach it could not speak well to your child.
Yeah.
And so you have to try a different one that uses a different method. But there's also taking into consideration as us as parents is this curriculum working for me? Some of them are very demanding of the parents, like
Mhm.
you having to sit down for an hour and sit there and work on it with your kids, and that might be some parents style and that's what they want to do.
Mhm.
And then other parents like me do not want to do that, and so we need to find a different
Yeah.
method.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my brief little rant about curriculum. And the older that they get, the more complicated that curriculum can be as well. So
Yeah, I kind of felt like us doing that computer curriculum helped with the time management organization side because it was like, all right, do it at your own pace. And if it takes you the entire year to do this, Rachel, then that's what it takes. Or if you want to finish your whole year in like 3 months, Rebecca, then that's what it takes. Whatever, just figure it out.
I find it interesting that the two ADD kids in our house, me and Nate, were just constantly getting behind on work because we sat at the computer doing nothing while you just focused and got your work done. So that is kind of how it.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, socialization and extracurricular activities. We mentioned a little bit ago, and that a lot of times middle school and high school age kids can seek those deeper social connections. But here's the thing, if you are in any sort of church community, this was where I had all of my social interactions is I was really involved in our church and youth group. And I was going to youth group on Wednesday nights and those were all my friends and so we were getting together and I was also homeschooled with a lot of the same people that were at our church. And so I think that that can be very helpful for people that really want that community is find a church that has the homeschool community that you're looking for and the, you know, I keep wanting to say small group, but the youth group, the youth group. And I appreciate our parents shifting churches for us based on what we were going through. They always put us first in that sense that we went to a specific church when we were at like elementary school age. And then we moved and went to a new church when we were kind of middle school and then into high school. That was a lot better for us in that time period. And then after that, once we were a little older, it was like we moved on to something else. And because I can see that with my own situation, right? Like we're going to a church that I really love, but I can also see that I want to get more involved in homeschooling as we move forward. And there are people that homeschool at my church, but it's not a big community. And so I don't know how the two will mesh as we move forward. But, you know, when the time comes, I know that it's important for me to find groups of kids that are going to resonate with what we're doing. So co-ops and other activities. And then we mentioned sports last time. Our brother actually played sports at the public high school that was by us because when you pay taxes, and this was in the state of Florida, you're still paying taxes whether you're homeschooling your kids or not. It's not like if you homeschool, you get to withhold taxes from the US government that go into the school
Did you
system.
know that some states are now passing though, what's it called? That the money for taxes will now follow the student school choice bills,
Really?
and Florida is one of them.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
and it just passed or is passing in Texas where I live.
So what does
But
that
it's
mean?
so essentially for people who choose alternative school that could be private school or homeschooling. In Florida, I know you get $7,000 per kid back.
Hmm,
So
okay.
normally the taxes that fund public schools come from your property taxes. So now, in the state of Florida, you can get up to $7,000 per kid for
Interesting.
going
Well,
towards
then
your.
maybe they will or won't be able to go play team sports. And if they do or they don't, I mean, that's
Yeah,
going to be up to the parent, but
yeah, I don't know if that'll change things. And I do know that there is actually a debate amongst homeschoolers on even wanting school choice bills passing because for right now, there's not really strings attached. But I know because I've talked to our mom about this
Mhm,
and she's been in the homeschool realm since it was legalized in Florida, and that a concern with these school choice bills is government involvement. Is if the
mm,
government is going to give you money for your kids'
interesting.
education, is then what are they going to require of you? Are they going to require that you prove through standardized testings that like public school requires standardized testing, which is always a huge waste of time every time I did it. And it was so annoying. So, and some states already require standardized testings
Well,
for
that
homeschool.
already is a requirement. When we were homeschooled, we had to go do standardized testing
It
at the end of
was
every year.
then in Florida, but for places like Texas right now that is having this school choice bill pass, like currently there is
There
no
isn't. Mhm,
requirements whatsoever for homeschooling in Texas. Like I don't have
okay.
to do standardized testing with the kids. I don't even have to keep any record of the curriculum that our kids
Oh,
are using or
interesting.
what they're learning. Yeah. Yeah, the
Interesting.
government
So
is completely uninvolved here.
I'm in Tennessee and it's very different. You have to register your child with an umbrella
Mhm.
school
Right.
from once they start kindergarten, and
Yeah.
you have to keep records of your teaching and what you're teaching your kids. And this kind of actually rolls into our next topic, which is preparing for college and testing and transcripts and records and all that stuff, because it can be very confusing. as a homeschooler, it depends on your state. So you're going to have to look up homeschooling laws and requirements in your state. And I definitely recommend joining homeschool groups for moms in your local area to learn
Mhm.
about this because there's people that have already done this and you don't have to do the research because every state is different. And when you go from one state to the next state, it changes too. So it's important to kind of keep a record of whatever it is that you're doing. But yeah, in the state of Florida, I remember taking tests at the end of the year, and now
I
they
know.
weren't at a school necessarily. They were at like the church that we went to had a homeschool day where homeschoolers would come and take these tests. But when I took the SAT, for example, I did have to go to a public school to take the SAT. And obviously, I still had to take either the SAT or the ACT to get into college. Now, the way that it works for high school diploma, again, different by state, but a lot of people will choose to get a GED because they don't know, maybe the parents didn't know whatever rules in their state, but you have to, in the state of Florida anyway, I'll give them as an example because I'm just most familiar with it. You had to use an umbrella school where you were sending your work and your tests and things of that nature, and they were essentially acting as a private school on your behalf that were saying this student did their work and all that. And at the end of your high school education, you would get a high school diploma from that umbrella school, was
Mm,
essentially how it worked.
mhm.
If you did not have one, and I don't know how this works in all states, then you would have had to go to take your GED to get your GED. But let's talk a little bit about the college side of things too, because I wanted to start college early. And in the state of Florida, you can start at the age of 16. So I turned 16 in October and I wanted to start in January semester rather than wait a whole year. I started taking the SAT when I was 14. If you think about that, that's kind of crazy because you want to take it a year before you start, right? And so I was like, would have been 15, but then a little bit earlier to kind of get started. And in the state of Florida, they have this scholarship program called Bright Futures, where you can earn either a 75% or 100% scholarship based on your test results on the SAT. You have to have basically almost a perfect score to get 100%. And you have to also have, what is it called? Like hours,
Community service, isn't it? Or no,
community service. Yes.
yeah, yeah, community service
You
hours,
also
yeah.
have to have kind of community service hours and things like that. So anyway, I took the SAT when I was 14 and I didn't get to the 75% scholarship amount. So I just took it again
Yeah.
until I got to that point. And then
I took it the SAT 5 times
I didn't know
because
that.
every time I was 10 points under getting 100% scholarship. And it was like my English score was 10 points too low. And then the next time I would take it, my math, my English score got better, but my math score was 10 points. And I kept taking because I'm like, I'm so close. And this is what is the SAT, like a 4 hour test?
It's long. Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, after the fourth, it was either 4 or 5 times. After the fourth or fifth time, mom was like, Rachel, the 75% scholarship is great. Like, we should just accept that. And I'm like, but I'm so close. Like, all I had to do was
Oh,
essentially get two more questions.
you were trying to take it to get to 100%?
Yeah. I was trying to get 100%
Oh, that's
scholarship.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
that's
it
funny.
was like
Oh,
I was two
I got
questions
to
away.
75 and I was done. I was like, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, mom accepted that as well. So,
That's
yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is a cool thing. So let me talk about that for a second because I put some notes here that homeschoolers can go to college early, and there are lots of states that have programs for this where it depends on the state. Some of them offer what's called early admission or early college. Some states it's called dual enrollment. In Florida, I think it was dual enrollment for your junior year and early enrollment for your senior year, something like that. They're all called something a little bit different. But you can basically earn college credits while you're also finishing out high school.
Hmm.
And so what I was doing from 16 to 18 was getting my associate's degree while also finishing my high school diploma because the things that I was doing crossed over.
Hmm.
So I know it says here California, Texas, New York, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Washington, Colorado, Minnesota, Ohio, Massachusetts, and Indiana all have programs that are like this where you can start early. So certainly look into those because, there's lots of options there. And then the other thing that I want to mention, since we were talking about dual enrollment or not dual enrollment, Bright Futures scholarship,
Right.
is that there are also a lot of states that offer either free college or reduced costs or are giving opportunities based on merit or financial need or residency, state residency, things like that. That's the other thing about Bright Futures is you also had to be a Florida resident for a certain period of time.
Hmm.
But of course, the United States military, we all know you could go there and they'll basically pay you to go to school there. But some tuition-free colleges that were of note, the College of the Ozarks in Missouri, Bureau College in Kentucky, Deep Springs College in California. And then some schools have some state programs. New York has the Excelsior Scholarship that offers free tuition to what they call SUNY, State University of New York, and CUNY, I don't know how they pronounce it, City University of New York schools for students whose families earn less than 125K per year. I don't know how you could live in that state and make less than $500 million, but so you have to meet certain residency and post-grad requirements. Tennessee also has free tuition for 2 years of community college for recent high school graduates. California has a grant program. Oregon has the Promise program. And there's a bunch of other stuff out there. There's other scholarships. So definitely look into those options for, your children if college is something you're considering. I mean, I kind of personally now think that college is a scam, but
Yeah.
that's just a whole other podcast episode.
But if you're going to be scammed, at least try to do it for free.
If you're going to be scammed, don't pay for it.
Don't
Because here's the thing
get
is now
student loans
we just spent all this time talking about protecting your kids and now it's like, all right, send them off to these like
and get
indoctrination camps.
$50,000 of student loans at 18 years old. Yeah, to be
Yeah.
indoctrinated
You
by,
mean $500,000 or a
yeah, I guess
hundred
that's
thousand
true.
dollars? It's
It's,
crazy these days.
yeah, I think the greatest gift that our parents ever gave, I mean, just speaking for myself, is that they made sure I didn't have any student loans, especially because I'm not using my college degree. Like, how
Yeah.
brutal would that
You
be to be a
you
stay-at-home
are and you
mom,
aren't.
not using my college degree? I guess I am, like, in some sense, but not
Yeah.
using it to make an income to pay for student loans. Like, if I had student loan payments and I'm not even making income with that degree, that, and a lot of people are experiencing that, and that's
Mhm.
brutal. So,
Man, I wish I remembered that guy's name that I saw his videos about college and how it really all works. If I find it between now and when I edit this episode, I will put it in the show notes. But there is this guy that I watched his videos years ago on college and about how it all works and how all of the sponsors are the ones that control the schools. And it's it was eye-opening and very interesting in my, kind of investigation of colleges.
yeah.
But, the workforce in the world is changing. A lot of
Mhm.
companies are now trying to get kids to bypass going to college. Like I know it's a big thing with Google and even with Facebook that they are saying, don't go to college, just come work here and we're going to train you and we're going to put you through educational and training classes because they're trying to teach them quicker. They're like, don't waste your time doing this. If you're just going to come work here for your job, you don't even need to go to college because we're going to have to reteach you and teach you everything
Right.
you need to know about working here anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the world is changing by the time that our kids are getting to college. It's going to be a bit of a different world. But
Mhm.
right now, it's in a weird thing too because you're going to college to be some of these more mainstream professions like nurses and doctors and lawyers and, these kind of cut dry type of positions when, you and I know that like a lot of that stuff is not the direction that we really want to be going. The medical system in America, the healthcare system is completely broken.
Hmm.
And so to go down that road or to go down that path, I wouldn't want to encourage my particular child to go down that path. I would love for them to get mentored under somebody if they were interested in being in medicine or being in healthcare on midwifery or on holistic
Yeah,
health or natural path type of health. And it's a different pathway that you're not going to
right,
go through Rockefeller's program to do.
right. Yeah.
But we don't want to go there today.
Yeah, we've already done episodes on that.
Definitely. Yeah. Go back to some of our other episodes that we have done on
Which,
pharmakia.
if you think about the amount of restraint, we did episodes on Rockefeller's ties to the pharmaceutical industry. We have not even talked about Rockefeller's dirty little fingerprints on the public school system in these episodes.
This
So
is a lot of
you're
restraint.
welcome.
Maybe next time. Maybe next time. I
Yeah,
mean,
that'll be a
that's
whole new set of notes.
a whole new set of notes. That's what people are here for anyway, right? Is to hear the real stuff. So
The conspiratorial stuff. I mean, it's not even a conspiracy
it's
theory.
not even a
Like he
conspiracy.
literally
It's literal.
funded the current public school system. And the reason that school is from, 7:30 a.m. until 3 p.m. is because of him. He wanted to create a country of workers.
Yeah, talk more about that.
It's off topic.
Not really, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
But
maybe
it's
we'll
it
talk
is
about it next time.
yeah, that would be a good episode too. So
Well, hopefully this has been helpful to listeners. I don't know. I think it's probably scared some people. Some people are probably like, "Oh gosh, I really don't want my kids to get into middle school. This sounds pretty like a nightmare." Hopefully it's not and that everything is great and fine. Just don't send them to public school. No, I'm just kidding.
well, I think really the bottom line is middle school and high school years can be hard no matter where
No
they're
matter
being
where they are.
educated.
Yeah.
Yeah, whether
Yeah.
they're home or they're going to school, it's kind of a choose your hard thing.
Mhm.
But I have hope anyway, and maybe this is my own naivety that my teenagers we can have a positive relationship and will that I'll enjoy their middle school years. The
Yeah.
middle schoolers get a bad rap, and I know I was terrible at that age. But maybe I could use some of my own experience and kind of forge a different path for my own
Yeah.
children. That's my hope, and
Absolutely.
and that's the beauty of homeschooling is that you can at least try your best to
Mhm.
create the environment that you want. Now, I'm saying
Yeah.
try your best because we can't control our kids like robots. They are individuals with individual personalities. They start having their own interests as they get older, and we kind of have to work with that. But
I think what you're saying is that we have the power to create the environment that we want for
mhm,
our lives, for our children, for their education, for their school, and to just have fun. I know that one of the things that it's funny because you and I have talked about how you didn't always love being homeschooled, but I always think very fondly on being homeschooled because I remember a lot of going to the plays. Like we
mhm,
used to go during the middle of the school week, we could just go to a children's play at this play center that was close to us, this theater. And I loved going to that kind of stuff or just going to kind of do stuff whenever we wanted.
mhm,
We had that flexibility. And I think that that is something that I really want to be able to do with my kids too, is just for us to be able to have fun and to be
mhm,
able to go do things that we enjoy doing together and create this childhood with our kids that we want to have. And obviously,
Yeah.
not everything's going to go perfect all the time. There's going to be struggle, but I enjoy and I love my kids and I want to have this time with them. And I don't want to, for them to be grown and to regret the time that I didn't get to spend with my kids, you know? So,
Yeah.
anyway, that's my own personal opinion on this. Obviously, choose, if you're listening, what is best for you and your family. But yeah, there's a lot of positives, but then I guess we're trying to say is life is life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have the choice to make at the end of the day. So,
Yeah. For
yeah.
sure.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And if you'd like to follow along outside the podcast, join the mission on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at The Radiant Mission. And today we are going to close with a verse that really highlights the importance of pursuing wisdom. And this is from a biblical and spiritual context, of course. And that is Proverbs 16:16. How much better to get wisdom than gold, to get insight rather than silver. So let's encourage our kids not to chase the money, but chase wisdom from the Lord.
Yeah. Amen.
We're wishing you a radiant week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.